The Sony FX30's selling point is a simple one. It's cinema-grade video at an entry-level price. And with that new lower price starting at just £1,599 here in the UK, just how does this nearly 3-year-old camera hold up? Well, I purchased one as my main A-cam and I'll be using it from now on. And over the last week I've had a lot of time to play with this thing and I've got some thoughts, so let's jump into it. Firstly, let's talk about looks. This little beast takes a lot of inspiration from its bigger full-frame brother, the FX3. It's covered in buttons, dials and mounting points, making it a perfect start if you're wanting to customise this camera into a more fully fledged cinema rig. The mounting points around the camera do make it easy to attach a range of accessories and even third-party cages without it feeling too intrusive. The screen here is actually better than the one found on the FX3. It's a 3-inch 1.44 million dot LCD screen that's crisp and bright, so you'll have no issues using this camera in either day or low light conditions. Opening up the weatherproofed ports, you can see 2 media card slots. These support the standard SD card as well as the more expensive CF Express Type A cards. This does mean that you can have the option to always have a backup if one of your media fails. You get full HDMI here too, USB-C, 3.5mm headphone as well as other audio inputs and so much more. Honestly, connectivity will never be an issue with this camera, and that full-size HDMI is super useful too for when you want to connect up to external monitors for viewing. That is particularly useful in my case, being partially sighted, because I need as big of a monitor as I can get, and no matter how good this screen looks, it is simply just too small. For a run and gun camera, it's not too heavy either, coming in at around 645 grams. That is just the body, mind. That doesn't include things like lenses and other accessories that you may attach to the body. If you're interested in knowing which lens I'm actually using, it's the Sigma 18-50 f2.1. It is an absolutely great lens. It's pretty budget, but it's incredibly versatile and does everything that I need it to and more. If you're planning on shooting handheld, you do have in-body image stabilisation here, and it works pretty well. If you do need additional software stabilisation, then you can do that, because this camera records all of the gyro data and allows you to import it into Catalyst Browse, where it can do all of that stabilisation for you. It is incredibly intuitive and easy to do, and has changed my workflow in terms of how I get the footage off of my camera onto Final Cut Pro. The main sensor here is a 26 megapixel Super 35 APS-C affair. The same one found on a few other of Sony's more budget affairs, including the ZV-E10 Mark II. It's capable of 4K footage oversampled from its native 6K up to 60 FPS. But with an additional 1.6 times crop, you can go all the way up to 4K 120 FPS. So straight out of the gate, there is a lot of flexibility in terms of shooting, including up to 10-bit 422 colour space, using Sony's own S-Log3 colour profiles for the ultimate colour workflow. The lens system here is the normal Sony E-mount that we're all used to. It does mean that we have a wide range of compatibility when it comes to lenses. Let's talk about actually shooting with this thing, because at first it can feel pretty daunting and is a pretty big learning curve, especially for me coming from a DSLR. That being said though, once you're used to it, like me, you'll probably wonder how you ever lived without some of these features. Let's start off by talking about the dual-based ISO. One at 800 ISO and the other at 2500, meaning you can make the use of Sony's Cine EI feature sets. Choosing one of these 2 ISO ranges, then when changing ISO, all it actually does is change the exposure by up to 2 stops and changes the image on the display rather than what you're actually shooting. If you want a full breakdown of exactly what Cine EI is and how to use it, let me know in the comment section down below and I'll be sure to create a video on it. While you're down there as well, why not get subscribed, because I'm going to start to do a lot more content surrounding this camera and content creation in general. If you choose not to use Cine EI, the ISO range is between 100 and 32,000. You also get 14 stops of dynamic range, meaning that the low light performance here is pretty incredible, and hopefully you can see that from some of this test footage too. While shooting S-Log3, you can also supply your own LUTs, meaning that you can view through the screen exactly how it would come out once applying LUTs afterwards in post-processing. Don't worry though, this doesn't actually get applied to the clip unless you tick that setting in the settings menu. More on that later. It's a really nice feature to have for both beginners and more advanced users, but for beginners it's a lifesaver, and that's exactly who this camera is realistically aimed at. In my experience, shooting S-Log3 is an absolute breeze. Colour grading it is also just as simple using Final Cut Pro. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about my workflow and how I colour grade my footage coming off of this camera, let me know in the comments section. I'd love to do a tutorial on it, but I just don't know if that's something that you guys want to see. The main reason I moved away from Canon and over to Sony was because of the autofocus, or lack thereof on the Canon side. Thankfully though, in true Sony style, the FX30 doesn't disappoint here. The autofocus system has all the real-time eye autofocus and real-time tracking technology that we take for granted with Sony, including both human, animal and bird autofocus. It is honestly a lifesaver for solo creators and people who are visually impaired who can't see if stuff is in focus. It was a genuine problem with the Canon 250D that I was shooting with before, and I have never had any issues with any kind of autofocus on the FX30. So what exactly is missing on the FX30? Well, there's variable ND for one, though realistically I don't think I would miss this. I purchased a ND filter which just attaches to the front of my lens. It's a 2-stop, but honestly that's really all I need. I don't think I'd ever see myself using anything more than that. Sure, for a cinema line camera it does feel like a glaring omission, and it's something that the FS6 and the FX9 have. You also don't get a viewfinder. Again, this isn't something that really bothers me, because it's never anything that I've used in this camera or any camera before it. Especially for video, I just don't really see a point in them. Now, let's talk about battery life. This camera utilises Sony's FP-NZ100 battery, and it's pretty good in terms of a workhorse. In my week of testing, I found I can get a decent amount of footage done in a single charge, roughly 115 minutes of battery life when shooting movies. Of course, this will depend on your recording settings, screen brightness, and whatever else you're using accessory-wise. It's well worth investing in a few extra batteries, or you could rig this thing up to be a V-mount for an external battery and just use a dummy one. It really is up to you. One thing that often crops up with these smaller cameras is heat. These things overheat a lot, especially when we're talking about the ZV-E10 Mark II. When shooting longer clips in 4K, the camera just shuts off. That isn't a problem here with the FX30, mainly because of its active cooling fan that's inside. I didn't experience any kind of overheating when using this thing for longer clips in 4K while outside on a particularly warm day here in the UK. That being said, a warm day in the UK isn't a hot environment, and I felt the body getting warm, but it certainly never overheated, and that's something that I wouldn't be able to say if I'd have picked up a ZV-E10 Mark II. For the majority of my testing, I didn't use the inbuilt microphones on the FX30, and you shouldn't either. I use the DJI Mic Minis, and they work great here. Sony will sell you an additional XLR handle if you decide that you want to use XLR-based microphones. I didn't see a point in it, so I didn't purchase it and saved myself a couple of £100. Finally, let's talk about the menu system, because it is a little bit of a beast. There are a lot of options here, and it can feel pretty overwhelming, especially if you're new to videography. If you're incredibly new to cameras, this may just be a bridge too far, and you may want to look at some of other Sony offerings. For example, the ZV-E10 Mark II. It is a lot cheaper, doesn't have a lot of the menu options, and is a lot more pick up and shoot than this kind of camera is. You're not sacrificing anything in terms of image quality, but you are just getting an overall more user-friendly experience for beginners. Sony is continuing to support this camera with brand new software updates, even 3 years on. So after spending a week with the Sony FX30, who is it really for? Well, as Sony's marketing suggests, it is a great entry point for many people looking to get into cinema line cameras, cinematography, or even content creators like myself. It is cheap, it is incredibly versatile, and honestly it is an absolute joy to shoot with. The great autofocus makes it a serious contender for solo shooters as well. Sure, we are missing some of those more high-end features like the variable NDs and the viewfinders, but I don't miss them here, and I very much doubt 99% of people would, especially with the budget of this camera. It's a camera that I can genuinely see myself relying on for an incredibly long time, and it's my main A camera here right now. I expect to use this thing for many years to come. So there we have it, guys. What are your thoughts on the Sony FX30? Do you think this is a good investment 3 years on, or do you think that maybe there are better options on the market? Let me know in the comment section down below, and of course while you're down there as well, get subscribed, do all of that good stuff, because it genuinely does mean the world to me. Anyway guys, my name is Robert, this has been a bite-sized clue, and I will catch you in the next one. Adios.